Peace world, what's good? It's Wyking here today for another episode. We have a very special guest in the building, as we always do. I'm here with my good sister, Nicole Bascomb, a Garfield Central District native.
Absolutely.
Garfield High School alumnus, University of Washington alumnus, owner and designated broker for Bascomb Real Estate Group, and board member for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers.
Correct.
Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
It's good to have you because we're going to be talking about, probably the most important issue, in relationship to our community, which is, having the space to have a community.
Right.
And we know real estate is a significant part of that.
It absolutely is.
So we appreciate you coming in to share some of your insights, knowledge, wisdom, and experience that you've gathered over the years.
I appreciate your time and giving me the opportunity to speak about this. Is very much a passion of mine, and it's very important for our community. So thank you for the time.
Yes, it is. So before we get into, those details, we were able to introduce a little bit about you, but maybe share a little bit about your journey to this point.
Yes. So as you said, I'm a CD born and raised, Garfield alumni, Bulldogs forever. I did leave to go to a HBCU from high school, but, money's funny sometimes, so I had to come home and finish at the UW. So I'm a UW alumnus. Also got my graduate degree here in Seattle, but Seattle's been home. And Seattle, the Puget Sound area, because many of us don't live in Seattle anymore.
Greater Seattle.
Greater Seattle, now, yes, right? Greater Seattle.
Yeah.
So, it's really been, it's been a journey for me in that this is fairly new space for me. I was a mother early. I had my oldest daughter in college, and so I was very much focused in my 20s and 30s of being a good mom to my kids. I have 3 girls now, being focused on what they were doing. I wasn't as participatory in the community as much. I just felt like I didn't have the bandwidth. But now I've gotten to a space where I am most certainly enjoying being a part of the community, doing this work, taking on the mantle my dad started in real estate. He was a real estate broker in the central Seattle area for 45 years until his passing in 2017. So it's been an honor and a privilege to just take over his business and be able to do this work to really support our community, because homeownership is so important, and really the reason why we're here speaking, and my affiliation with some of the organizations that I've been working with, Africatown, and I'm really excited about it. So, it's been an amazing journey. It's been, ups and downs, as many journeys have, but it's been wonderful. I would never change it.
So were you in the game around the big crash?
I was a mortgage underwriter. So I got hit hard. I was laid off 5 times in 2 years during the recession. So I've been in lending for 25 years, banking and lending for 25 years. I got into the real estate piece about 6 years ago. I got my license, but I've been in the business for a long time, since high school. And so that was a huge eye opener where, I had to start making some transitions around being employed and having a job and what that means. And, some people think you have a paycheck, there's some stability there, but the reality is, if your number's up, your number can be up. So how do I create a different opportunity for me and my family? And that's really how I got into getting into the game with my dad, with real estate. And I already knew a lot of things people don't know being an underwriter, so it was just a natural transition.
Definitely. I know that gives you some, additional insights and seeing things from multiple sides of
Absolutely.
The table. So, with that said, growing up in the CD, it's a very different community from when your father started,
Yes.
all those decades ago, right? And then being a real estate professional, what are your thoughts on, the change and how has it, impacted you?
It was a change that seemed to happen so quickly. I bought my first house when I was 24, moved to Kent with all purposes of coming back to the Central District once my income was able to support that. And that never materialized, just given the massive change in real estate in the Central District. I went from my entire family being in the CD to I have no family members in the CD. And so that affected our family, moving out. My dad, for sure, his business strategy had to change at the time because he was really very focused on the Central District in South Seattle, because Black folks were his predominant space that he worked in. So the CD changing was a huge factor in how I had to restructure my business, and he had to restructure his at the end because we are just not in the Central District anymore. So how do we leverage that change, and what does that look like? And so I have really focused on, okay, for some of my clients who are moving out of the CD, how do we make this work for you? Get top dollar. Most of them are retirees, so this is their retirement income, and making sure that they're comfortable and moving where they need to be, where they also are homeowners, but also still have some assets to work with.
Yeah. So with that, you said you were part of that migration south. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of people that have moved is that, it's not like the community and that whole sense of community has relocated, right?
Correct.
And we're kind of more spread out. So what is it like out there in a sense? You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of our community has expanded. I call it the CD diaspora now,
Right.
But what is the sense of community, or how does it kind of compare to what you grew up with?
I can't say that there's a sense of community. There is, you're a homeowner, and I have neighbors. It's not necessarily a neighborly experience like when I grew up. When we grew up, all our friends were on the block or within 3 or 4 or 5 blocks. We all walked around the neighborhood, did everything in the neighborhood. We hung out. We did all those things. That's not an experience my kids had. They had to travel because I wanted to keep them central. But that neighborhood aspect doesn't exist out south. And even though my clients, a lot of them move out south, it's been really difficult to try to centralize our community, given people's capacity. When they're buying, where can they buy? Where are the opportunities? And that's not always centrally located. So, trying to work on a plan around that has been very much my biggest challenge.
Right. So, and what we've seen is that still a lot of people, even though they live, I guess is it maybe what they call bedroom communities. They live there, but they're
suburbs.
Still coming back to
Right.
the Central District for sports and different social aspects. Has that been your experience, or like whether church or
Absolutely.
things of that nature?
I go to church still in the Central District, Mount Calvary Christian Center. My children all played sports, went to school in the CD, because that sense of community still, for me, the knowing, the knowing how to navigate as a parent, navigating the school district is difficult. I mean, if you don't know how to do that, particularly in some of these suburbs, your child could fall through the cracks, even though they have a parent who's a major advocate, which I always was. So being able to be in a district where my children, I know how to navigate it was supremely important. And then having that sense of community, like you said, with sports. My daughters played softball and basketball, and it all happens here in the Central District. My younger daughter still plays. And so we still don't have, and a lot of people have moved out south, and because they live there, that's what makes sense. But for those of us who still have that capacity, I think we still choose to do those things here in the Central District, because it's important that we still have that legacy that we've had in the CD.
Right. Yeah, and we want to definitely talk more about that, and I think it dovetails a lot with the work that we're doing. As a community has declined, the Central District was a high percentage homeowner community.
Yes, it was.
And many, you would assume that, with the prices going up, that, people are selling and buying out there. But what we've actually seen is that countywide, the homeownership numbers are down for Black people.
Correct. Yes. And a lot of that happened because a good majority of those folks who were homeowners were our grandparents, right? And our parents. And so in the 90s, when home values were not what they are now, you would go knock on, say my grandmother's neighbor got a knock on her door and they offered her $180,000 for her house in the 90s. Well, when you paid $15,000 for it and your taxes now exceed your fixed income, so you can't pay your taxes, $180,000 sounds like a lot of money. So you sell without putting it on the market, and exposing it and getting top dollar because this person came and offered you money that you wouldn't necessarily have. And so we saw a huge migration of people moving out who were older, who didn't necessarily have the capacity or the information to buy again when they moved. So they took that money, maybe went and rented somewhere else, South King, probably South Seattle, and the money wasn't used to invest. And that's really important. You know, when you're selling your house, what are you using with those assets? And a lot of them did not buy. And a lot of them didn't have the capacity to buy because many of them didn't sell in the traditional way where you had a broker who listed, who's also helping you on the back end. Okay, what's your next move? You know, when you have that investor come and knock on your door, it's just about the money. And that next move isn't one that's, you know, financially feasible for a lot of people.
Yeah, and to your point, you know, with a lot of our grandparents, like you said, our seniors in the community selling, well, you know, now we're also seeing them, you know, passing, you know.
Right.
And so as they pass,
right.
you know, there's different, you know, there's lots of different situations.
Exactly.
But even in the best situation, in terms of having, you know, wills and things like that in place, you know, you have the children or the siblings, and then they just, you know, everyone divides it up, and it's really not enough to make a next strong move, you know. And so if everyone gets 100,000 or 150, what can you really do with that, right?
Exactly.
So
and we don't have that generational wealth that the white community has, where they're able to keep a family home because everyone else probably used that family home to buy a home. And a lot of times we didn't have that in our community. That's something that we're still trying to build, is that generational wealth. And so we don't have the capacity when that scenario happens and a family member dies, the house gets sold because no one has the capacity to keep it up or cash out the other family members. And so that money is used for other things to help support, you know, each individual family. So
right. So is there any, these are some of the things that we've been wrestling with, you know, in terms of striving to come up with solutions, because it's like a number of different things, right? So, you know, with Africatown, you know, the affordable rental housing is the first space that, you know, we were able to really participate in, you know, with the Liberty Bank building and now working on the Africatown Plaza building. But preserving home ownership or finding solutions that allow people, if they need to sell, to do that, but then if we could find ways to have the community still hold it to continue the legacy, this is one of the challenges. You know, what have you, you know, kind of come up with any solutions for us, you know, around that part?
Well, it's part of my business model. So I'm not just a real estate broker just to be selling real estate. It is very much a passion of mine to help support my community and support my people, because I know how important homeownership is. Homeownership is the spring that hope springs eternal, where everything comes out of that, from, you know, educational indices, health disparities, capacity to go to college. All these things are really based around homeownership, and people don't understand that. It's not just about owning that piece of house. It's about what those things it supports. And so in doing that, I really try to help my clients. One, it's important to have a professional, someone who you can trust, someone you know knows what they're doing, because they can help you build a plan around that. Okay, can we, you know, leverage some people in the community? We've had this discussion with Africatown where, you know, perhaps someone can buy the property and use it to continue that in the community. Or if that person sells, what are they using those funds for moving forward? And then aging in place. Now that's an opportunity that there are a lot of nonprofits that are helping the seniors age in place, where, so you have the home, but you can't afford to make any repairs or upgrades because that requires you to refinance the house and take out equity, but then that comes along with another mortgage payment that you can't afford. So it's so many different pieces that goes with that, and I think coming up with those solutions is really important for me, and working on that, and it requires partnership. You know, no one person, no one organization, no one company is going to be able to do it. It's going to be a community effort.
Absolutely. Can you speak a little bit more about some of those organizations that are helping to facilitate aging in place and what that looks like? Right.
Like, so there's a nonprofit called Rebuild Together Seattle, where they have a program where they do funding to help seniors do repairs in their homes, and they know it's a grant to these seniors. So if someone needs to have their, you know, a ramp put up, they put that up, or one of those seats that you can get up the stairs, because stairs are becoming a challenge. Remodeling bathrooms, because the bathtub was an old clawfoot tub in these older seedy homes, and the seniors can't even get in the tub anymore. converting it to a shower, a walk-in with railings and things of that nature. So there are some organizations doing good work out here to help seniors age in place, particularly in the Central District and the South End.
That is a great resource. Thank you for that. We've been, keeping the good fight alive, you could say, because some people's perspective is, oh, well, it's gone and there's nothing you could do, And so our perspective is kind of like, well, it should never be as if we were never here.
Right.
It may not be exactly what it was, because nothing will be exactly what it was.
Right.
But it should be, something. What are your thoughts on, I guess, our efforts around preserving and developing a future for Black people in the city and in Seattle?
Well, it's definitely been a progression for me. I think that as you age and as you become, much more wiser in the information you have, it's about how do your thought process change. And so I was one of those people like, okay, well, we're gone. Let's try to figure it out somewhere else. But being exposed to some of the conversation that you and I have had and some of the information you've shared is, and you were really expressive about making it akin to the international district, and that, the Asian community has the ID, but everyone doesn't live there, but they have that communal space. They have that space where they know that their people are there. And that really changed the dynamic for me with the Central District. Okay, I can see that vision now. I can see where, okay, we all don't always all live there and may not come back, but we have that cultural center where we have businesses and we have services and we have, some homes still, but it's still a hub. And I have, transitioned to that thought process as, okay, I can see that and I can get around that and I can put my arms around that in every way. And how do we support that? And I think it's important that we do that, because I agree with you. I don't want it to just be we weren't there, because our impact on the Central District was amazing. Garfield High School, we know back in the 90s, white kids were being bused into the city when it was still 80% Black folks. But we've had such a legacy that we don't want to lose that completely. And it's important that we value that and we continue to work to maintain that.
Yeah, I mean, we strive to have be optimistic but realistic at the same, and balance those two things, and we are, excited to, the ownership piece is critical, and so we are excited to be joining with NAREB and the work that you guys are doing, not only locally but nationally. Can you speak for those that are not familiar with the organization? Can you talk about a little bit about the organization, what those initiatives are, and what you guys are doing here locally?
Absolutely. So NAREB stands for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So NAREB is the oldest Black professional trade organization in the country. Wow. And it was started because the National Association of Realtors, whom a lot of people know, wouldn't allow Black brokers to be members. So we couldn't be members of that trade association. So several brokers it was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in 1947, came together and started NAREB because we needed to have that support with one another. Real estate is not just about, a one-off, that one brokerage, that one, particularly in our community. It requires all of us working together. So in doing that, NAREB has blossomed into an amazing national organization. We have our president, who's on Capitol Hill, working with our representatives around housing for Black folks, because it's important. And in that, we have several initiatives we're running. Our most recent one is the 2 Million in 5 campaign, where we want to put 2 million Black people in homes in 5 years. So full ownership, home ownership in a 5-year span. And we also have a new initiative we just launched called the House Before the Car. And that's really focused on millennials, who are a huge population right now, that it's important that you buy a house before you buy a car, because there's so many facets that come to home ownership that a house can buy you a car. You can, you buy your home in a few years, refinance it, take money out, and pay cash for your car. Well, you can't do that with a car. A car is a depreciating asset. So you buy a car, a $900 car payment, you could have bought a house with that kind of house payment. So we're running these initiatives to really focus on home ownership, because every indice shows home ownership is where the health and well-being of a community comes from. And so it's important that we are offering that to the community.
Well, man, we're, like I said, we're excited to be joining 2 million and 5, and I guess pushing the car, what is it? The House Before the Car. House Before the Car as well. And so Africatown Community Land Trust is, partnering with NAREB on an event this coming Saturday, December 7th. I attended, and was honored to be able to present at your previous Building Wealth Through Homeownership event, and I just thought the information and resources that were presented there were so good that we wanted to really bring it to to the heart of the to the Central District, and really use our platform to bring as many people to that information as possible. Can you speak about what this event will be, what that event was like, and what people can expect on December 7th?
Absolutely. So we had our homeownership event in September. It was September 28th. And NAREB is not just real estate brokers. We have insurance agents, we have lenders, we have so many different people who are in the real estate industry, investors, and we all come together in order to provide these services to our community. So our last event we had was really kind of like a symposium where we had different tables, or we had people with different lines of businesses. We had insurance, we had real estate, we had a NAREB table, we had lenders there who really can provide real world on the ground information. So anything we were sharing, when you're having you speak there as well, anything we're sharing, they could go offline and speak to someone who's specifically in that line of business and talk with them about that. Okay, you need to work on your credit. Maybe you're not quite ready to buy, but we had a credit repair specialist there. We had someone who maybe they're ready to buy, but they need to have some discussion around insurance. We had an insurance representative there. I was there as a real estate broker. Okay, I'm ready to buy. I've taken some steps. Let's talk. So we provided all those services, and that's what we're going to do also with Africatown on the 7th, is provide that information so that people can come away with real information, empowered, not just coming to another speaking engagement where they don't really have anything that they can activate.
Get you motivated, but you can't.
There's no activation.
Right.
So there'll be actual activation there where I had 2 people who are currently looking for homes coming out of that transition, because we had so many discussions around, really getting rid of some of the barriers that people think.
Right. That's what I really found was impactful, was the myth busting.
Yes.
Right. And so there's a lot of, come to the event and you can get the full, but just what are some of those myths you think that are psychological barriers for people? Right.
Well, most of it is around income, assets, and credit. So one, income. I don't make enough money. I only make $50,000, $60,000, even $40,000 a year. I can't buy anything in Seattle. Well, you may not be able to buy in Seattle proper, but there's still many opportunities in King County to purchase. Most of my clients, about 45%, would be considered low or moderate income individuals. And I haven't had one person not buy a home.
Wow.
So income is not a barrier. If you're willing to be flexible to an extent about where you want to live, and we're not talking about rundown or anything of that nature, but you may have to come out of Seattle if you're used to being in Seattle.
Right.
But you can use that house to then bring yourself back at some point.
Right.
That's what homeownership can do. It's an asset. It builds wealth.
What they call it a starter home, right?
Exactly.
Where you start is not where most people end up,
right?
Exactly.
And that's the other myth, is they think they buy this home and it has to be the home they're going to retire in. Very many Americans buy multiple homes. Most Americans buy 2.5 homes, so 2 to 3 homes. So your starter home is just that. It's a starter home. It gets you started, but you're starting to build that asset that's going to help you move to the next level. So those are some, and then credit. Some people think, well, my credit is not good. Well, Seattle Credit Union has a program where you can have a 580 score and buy a house. Now, your rate's probably going to be higher, but it gets you in the door where you can get that starter home. It may be a little higher interest rate, but once you clean your credit up a little bit, you're in the house for a few years, you can refinance out of it. You can even sell it and or move up. You can turn it into investment property and move up. There's so many different opportunities. And then the third one we find is assets. People think they don't have enough money. There is millions of dollars in grant money and down payment assistance in King County and in the state of Washington that people are not tapping into.
And some of those people will be present on Saturday to really get people connected with that right on site. That's
Absolutely.
great. I mean, that was one of the things is right now the narrative is really if you don't work at Amazon or in the tech industry, then you can't,
Right.
you're just stuck in, in renting. So it's good that people will be able to, find those real resources. And so definitely come out on December 7th to our home ownership event. So we have this last segment, Dropping Gems,
Okay.
where you can really just give, pointed insight and tips to folks. So I have a couple, do you have any tips for folks who may have been thinking home ownership is out of their range, or first time home buyer?
Come to the event.
Okay. All right. We'll take
Come
that.
to the event because I don't have enough time here to really discuss all the things that there's the psychology around not being able to buy. That's the perfect avenue to do that, is come to the event, and anything that you want to talk about, we can take it offline. We have people who do one-on-ones, because a lot of people don't like to talk about their financial business in front of an entire crowd, but we have that opportunity to share that, and it's always in confidence. So come to the event, ask the question, we will have the answers for you.
Okay, cool. And now, there is a big, kind of wave around, get into the bag through real estate, there's a lot of, you look on social media, a lot of promotion around, it's good. I think buy the block bag, invest. Real estate is key. Some of the things you're saying for people that are looking to real estate, beyond, as investment opportunity, do you have any tips? Because I know you can, you don't want to just go off emotions, right? So any tips for people thinking about real estate as really an investment or business opportunity?
So it depends on what kind of opportunity we're talking about. So if you want to just get into, maybe you want to start owning properties as a landlord. So you buy a condo, you live there. You buy your first condo, you live there, you decide to upgrade in 3 or 4 years, and you find a duplex. So you keep the condo, turn that into investment property, buy a duplex, move into one of the units and rent the other out. Now you have 2 streams of income coming in. You still have your job, you still have income coming in, but that gets you started in the investment vehicle. The one thing about real estate investment in TV and social media is really kind of ruined it, I can say, is that this flipping, this whole thing around flipping property, and you really have to know what you're doing to be a flipper, and you really have to have the assets to do that, because when you buy a home and you're flipping it, you have to be able to have at least a 20 to 30% turnaround when you're flipping it. So that means you're buying a property that you have to do some extensive updating to. So you have to pay the mortgage while you're updating it. You're not making any income while you're doing that, and you're paying while you're doing this upgrading. So really getting into this real estate investment business really depends on how you're trying to do that, and really finding someone who can counsel you through that. And it's a challenge. My dad had a friend, George Noble. He's still real estate. He still owns, Greenstone properties in the King County. He had a perfect analogy at my dad's funeral, ironically, talking about real estate is a jealous mistress. You really have to be real serious about it, and you do, because real estate can be feast or famine. And so if you don't have a plan around what you're doing and know what you're doing, it can be challenging, but it can be done.
Well, thank you for those insights, and we'd love to, have people come to the event, get in more, and even have you come back and talk more about, real estate in the future. Any good podcasts, blogs, books, or anything like that you help keep you on your toes?
I'm probably an anomaly. People who sit in this seat, that I don't social media in any way, shape, or form. I do have some social media vehicles, but it's strictly for real estate, and I don't do a lot of social media. But I do try to follow, what's going on with, Roland Martin. I really like watching Roland Martin's information. He shares things that are happening in Black America. I'm reading a lot of information about the Root, the 1619 Project. I read a lot of things that are kind of think pieces and really focused on that. And so I don't really have blogs or YouTube channels per se, but I, get my information from different pieces.
Any books you would recommend that have, really profoundly affected the way you move in this world?
I had read a great piece. It's called Call to Create. So, my faith very much guides who I am. It says who I am and how I move in this world. And so part of that is, being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, because I also still have a day job. But entrepreneurship is important, and having those different vehicles is important. And then doing it for me in a Christian setting, because a lot of times as a Christian, business ownership is not looked upon as something that Christians do. But Called to Create was an amazing book to show how God is the original creator of things, and he's the original entrepreneur, and that he put us here to work and be busy and to do, bring prosperity to the world through our Christianity. So Called to Create was an amazing book for me as an entrepreneur. And then Late Bloomer, as I told you, I started really this work later on in my life. In my late 30s, 40s, I've been really getting involved in community. And so Late Bloomers is a book about, that we have this thought in America that you have to start in your 20s. Right. And if you haven't started then, you're done. And so, it has great stories on different people from across walks of life who were in their 40s and 50s and started billion-dollar businesses. So that one I'm actually working on reading as we speak. And so it's been eye-opening.
Great. Those are, great jewels for the folks out there, great gems. And so we are at our time for today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you again for coming in. And y'all know it's been very rich, but the time's up. So as we always do about this time, we want to encourage you once again to tap in, don't tap out. Peace.